For the very first time, my name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It is going good. We are almost done our second season here of Films for the Very First Time, where we each pick a movie that one of us has not seen, or a TV show that one of us has not seen, and then have a discussion about the movie or episodes of television that we watched. This year, we had two wild cards to use, one each, in which we pick a film that we haven't seen and that the other person has to kind of throw us off of our usual rhythm here. And my wild card was Inception. And Casey, we're getting to your wild card and the movie we're discussing today, which was what?
I decided to go with the second half of a story, which actually is going to turn into a trilogy, and we are watching Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Um, so interesting thing here. I watch this currently. I have it. I have the HD Blu-ray, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I watched it on Netflix. But at this moment in time, it's leaving on April 30th. So by the time people hear this, it will no longer be streaming on Netflix. Now, I
Wow.
don't know where it's going to next or what's going to happen with it.
It
That seems like a
um
pretty big movie to not be streaming somewhere.
they did announce May 1st, so that makes sense. May 1st it's going to be on Disney Plus.
Okay. Um, that okay.
Um
I'm
so
glad to hear that at least.
the way that the new Sony deal works is Sony has a deal with Netflix. That's where it goes to first or whatever. And then they have a secondary deal with Disney. So after it's done playing on Netflix, it goes to Disney.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that people will still be able to watch this.
Yes.
So when you do the notes for this,
I have
make
to
sure you add
update it.
that
Yeah.
in. Also, before we go into the other stuff with the movie, is it just me or is it really weird that Sony kind of doesn't have its own streaming service?
I think they made the right play there, honestly. I don't know if they have the material to really have their own streaming service. And I think the way that they've been kind of profitable with a lot of their franchises lately is by not having one and selling the
The rights
making the
to
deals
others?
and selling the rights. Yeah, so I think they actually probably made the right choice because we're going to start seeing some consolidation here, I think, soon with some of these streaming
I mean,
services.
I don't know what Sony's catalog. I think Columbia Pictures, I think, is a
Yeah.
part of them. I don't know what their catalog looks like. I think Columbia's is pretty extensive. Columbia's been around for a while, so I'm pretty sure they've got some even older, fairly big name movies in there. But it was just something hit me the other day. I was like, okay, we got HBO and we got CBS,
Hmm.
and you got Peacock for NBC and stuff, and I was like, why doesn't so? And then especially when you have the PS5, right? The PS4, which now you have the PS5, it would seem like they would like that. That's something they could throw into like PS Plus or whatever if they really wanted to get into it or something like free streaming time with that. I don't know. Once again, that's way out of my realm, but I was like, they're like the biggest. I think they're the biggest distributor or whatever, big studio that doesn't have their own service. And like you said, maybe it's the best thing for them. But
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the good move at the end of the day for Sony. Especially there's been always rumors floating around about them getting bought by somebody, but I felt like they handled this correctly and they've kind of had some really successful years lately. Um, so, you know, uh, on like Marvel side and also on not the Marvel side, right? Like if you say, oh, what they had
yeah,
Morbius and they had Madam Web and stuff, which those movies flopped, it's like they also have the Jumanji franchise right now, which is
yeah,
did well for them. They have the new Ghostbusters franchise, which has been all right for them. They have
Spider Man, like the actual
Spider-Man
Spider
itself,
Man
yeah, and
franchise.
this
Yeah,
one had a huge increase of box office from the first movie. So, um, their animation and stuff has been really on on point, I think, too. So, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, they're going to be making a lot more money than if they had a streaming service. Like you said, they do have like a good, I would say, backlog, but also we don't know how many of those are tied up with deals that would also prevent them from having them on their services, right? Like when Disney Plus launched, they had to kind of buy out some of the contracts for like the Star Wars films, or else they were only going to be able to have like one or two Star Wars films on their service. They were able to make a deal. I think it was with TNT and TBS that they had to make the deal with Turner, because they had the cable rights. They had to kind of
Yeah,
make a
and then
deal
especially,
to negotiate the streaming rights back from that cable deal, and they ended up giving them more movies via the cable deal or something to be able to work that out. But there was a
and
real
then when you get,
possibility that they would have had like two Star Wars movies. I remember following that when we're like, who are they going to have? Like, what movies are they going to have? And people are like, well, they can only legally have like this movie and this movie. And it was becoming a mess. And then, they announced that first week, I think it was, that they're like, here's the movies. And it was all of them.
and then if you look at like what we talked about with the Terminator franchise, where especially when you start getting older movies in like the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, you had all these other weird studios that have been shut down or bought by someone else, or someone owns this percentage of the rights, someone owns this percentage of the rights, so you
Right.
got to negotiate to get it's. Yeah, I can't imagine. That's just, that whole thing's a nightmare. But we talked about it with James Bond, like they couldn't they couldn't include, when they were making one of them, uh Blofeld and whatchamacallit, until they were able to negotiate whoever had the rights to like those characters or the other part of the story. It's like,
Right.
Jesus. But anyway, it was just something I was curious about when I was watching this. I was like, why doesn't Sony do their own thing? But maybe, like I said, maybe it's for the best. All right, so Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, sequel to, what was the first one? Spider-Man
Into the
Into the
Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. And we have the upcoming, we have Spider-Man Beyond, I think, the Spider-Verse.
Yep. Beyond. Yep.
Um, at least they're only changing like one word in the title. At least they're keeping it pretty.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can kind of, and especially once all three come out, you can kind of see the Into, Across, and
Into's
then
usually like
Beyond.
a first, right? Like I feel like
Yeah,
Into, you're like, we're going in, so that's like the first
yeah.
thing. Across is pretty
Across, you're spreading
general,
it out, and then
but then
Beyond, you're
Beyond,
going further out.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, that's further out. That's the third one. Yeah.
So that will make sense, but release date May 30th of 2023 out here in Los Angeles at the Regency Village Theater. The worldwide release was June 2nd, 2023. The budget was between 100 and 150 million dollars. Box office was 690.8 million. It was nominated for one Academy Award, Best Animated Feature. If I'm remembering correctly, I think they thought they were like a shoe-in for this. And, or was that another one? They're like, it might have been another one that year that like every other one had received like an Academy Award and they were a shoe-in for it. And then come to find out they didn't win, and it was kind of a shock.
Do we know what won this year then? That year?
Hmm.
I'm trying to
I
see.
didn't look it up.
Usually,
I was gonna say it,
usually
so
they
you can.
have it on like Wikipedia, but they don't have like a section for the. It's usually in like reception or something, but they don't have like a section for, I guess, list of accolades. Here we go. Um, yeah, they did not win the Academy Award. They did win it the first year, the first movie.
Yeah,
So that's probably why people thought it was a shoe in. Um, but what ended up
Guillermo del
winning?
Toro's Pinocchio won that year.
That's right. That's right. I was wondering what year that was. Um, yeah, because this is like I've alluded to it last week, or last episode, that this is one that people consider better than the first one. So I think people were automatically thinking, especially when you look at like the animation, I think got better in this movie. So like you're thinking it's a shoe-in, right? And I'm sure there was a lot of people that thought that. And you also have people putting this as like one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, and again, you're thinking, okay, it's a shoe in for these awards, and didn't didn't really get any. It only had the one nomination too, which was best animated feature, which is usually all they get anyway, and
Now, in all
did not
fairness,
win
they
it.
don't have like a voice acting category.
Right.
Um, is there? I'm curious. Are there special awards for animators? Like, is there an animation type Academy Award or Emmy Award type thing?
I don't
Because
think
that
so.
like that would be a great spot for like your voice actors. You could do like your hand drawn animation. You could do your computer animation. Um, I think I saw they said this year they're doing a stunt category, but I think it's only one category. It might be like best stunt person. I don't know how they're really gonna judge that or something. I don't know. Um, I don't know if the animators don't have their own awards. I think that's a shame. I think they really should.
Right.
Um, all right, so like I said, budget 100 box office was 690.8. Um, directed by uh, Joaquim dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. Written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, Dave Callahan. Starring, uh, let's see, did I? Nope, I think I did. Why did I close it? Okay, it was starring because this had a lot of people in it, so I want to make sure I get this all
Mm-hmm.
right. It was too many for me to try and jot down in my notes. So Haley Steinfeld as Gwen Stacy. She is a hot item right now, especially after
Sinners.
yeah, apparently her appearance as Sinners is getting rave reviews. I really need to see that movie. Shamik Moore as Miles Morales. Brian Tyree Henry as Jeff Morales. Luna Lauren Velez as Rio Morales. Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker. Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara. Jason Schwartzman as Spot. Issa Rae as Jessica Drew. Daniel Kaluuya, hopefully I said that name correctly,
You
as
did.
Hobie.
Yep.
Karan Soni, hopefully I said that correctly, as Paviter Prep. I, I don't want to mess that up, as the Indian version of Spider Man. And Greta Lee as Lila. Um, Something I got to talk about now. This always amazes me when you hear people with their natural accent
Mm-hmm.
and you forget that they are actually from another country. Daniel Kaluuya, and everything I've seen him in, I forget he's British. And then you hear like I heard him in this, and I was like, that's got to be his real voice. Like this is like they did a great job with the animation for it, so you can't really tell it. Like you're looking at the animation, so it fits the character, right? But hearing the voice and knowing the voice behind it, it kind of messed with my head a little bit. It's like, man, I forget this dude's British. Idris Elba's another one. Alfred Molina, another type of Spider-Man, is another one. Forget he's British. And
Yeah. Yeah.
last year I watched Species for the first time in a long time, and he talks with his like natural British accent in that, and I was just like, wait a minute, like everything I'd seen him in, it had always had like this natural American accent, and then I hear him speaking that, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I feel like Stewie Griffin. I don't like change. But then you realize how talented they are when they can do those things with their voice. Um, so you obviously had seen this before. Did you go see this in the theater? What was your story with Across the Spider?
Yeah, I saw Into the Spider-Verse in theaters, after hearing rave reviews. It became one of my favorites, and we went, in 2023. So my nephews usually come up every year. They live in Florida, and they come up every summer or so to spend time with us here. And we had planned that year, 2023. Um, we all went as a family, like my nephews, my grandparents, my parents, me, my wife, all went to go see this movie. My grandparents had not seen Into the Spider Verse, so they had no clue what was going on. They just wanted to kind of join they just kind of want to join the family event. I feel like so. We went to see this as a family. I think it's close to opening night as we went. I forget what day we went. It might have been the Friday or Thursday that it released. Because I think that Saturday we all went to a baseball game. So I don't think it was like a weekend thing we went to. So it was probably Thursday or Friday that it released that we all went to go see this movie. And I had to see it anyway because I liked the movie, but I also had to cover it on my Marvel podcast, which is now fused with all my other podcasts called Soups and Sabers. But if anybody's interested to my thoughts out of the theater, it's over there, um, from that original release. You're on mute, Casey.
I'm sure they probably enjoyed it, but I wonder what it was like for them to go in having not seen the first one. You know what I
They
mean?
were lost. They were real lost.
I was gonna say I can imagine this one. Yeah, if you haven't seen the first one, this is definitely something. Not that you may not enjoy it, but you won't get everything that you're seeing. You'll get some parts of the story, some of it won't make sense. So obviously, you chose Into the Spider Verse last season. I had
Mm-hmm.
not seen that. I enjoyed it. I believe I might have gave it a 5. I'm pretty sure I
You
did,
did.
if I
Yep.
can recall. Uh, but at the time, 2023, when this came out, once again, I did not go see this in the theater. Uh, I'd heard good things about Into the Spider Verse, and I saw this got good reviews and everything. But also, I hadn't seen the first one. So I'm the kind of person where, for a movie, unless like if it's a group event and we're going as a group or something, and that's what the group wants to see, okay, I'm kind of tired. Like, I'm not just gonna be like, well, I don't want to see this, so I'm gonna go watch my own movie over here, or like I'm just gonna check out of the group and I'll see you guys when you get back or whatever. Right? It's not cool. So something like that, I would go see, and I would just suck it up. Or if it was a date type thing, I remember when I was dating someone, they went to go see one of the Twilight movies in the theater. I can't remember which one. It was not the first one. It was somewhere farther along.
Mm-hmm.
It was in like the 2009, 2010 range. So one of those movies. But once again, it's a date. I kind of can't be like, I haven't seen the rest of these. I don't want to see them. You're kind of putting on your best, the parents there. So you make sacrifices, right? It is what it is. Um, but normally I wouldn't go see like the second or third part of a movie without having seen the other. So I had not gone to see it. Plus, at the same time, it goes back to what I said before. With some of these animated movies, I think things have changed now. Um, I was still under the impression that these were meant more for children. So I didn't feel comfortable going into an animated movie by myself thinking it was a kids movie because I thought I would just get a bunch of weird looks and weird vibes from people, and I don't want to make a bunch of other people feel uncomfortable. Like I get why they would. If it was something like if it was a legitimate kids movie, right? I don't know what's a big kids thing, Blues Cruise or Bluey or something like that, right?
Right.
That kids are into nowadays. if I walked into something like that people were bringing their kids into, right? And they started feeling uncomfortable, wondering why is this weird dude by himself in the back of the theater. Like, I get that. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. I'm sure at some point an usher would come up to me and ask me. But I think with some of these movies now, you can look at them a little differently. Like, when the next one comes out, it might be a different story because I know they're not necessarily children's movies, right?
Right, right.
So, that might be something I might look at when that next one comes out next year, the year after, whenever it is. I don't know when they started working on the next one. I know they are, but something like this, the animation can take a while, so could be next year. Have they announced the date for Beyond yet, or no?
Yes, they just did. It's I believe it's early June, late May of 2027.
So we still got like a year and a half left before. Okay, that's not too
2
bad.
years. We got about 2 years. June 4th. Yeah, June 4th, 2027.
And that's as of right now. That's hopefully, if there's no delays, if there's no,
Yeah.
especially with animation, you never know. Also, you gotta, hate to bring this up, you gotta wonder how this will work as far as the current administration, if there's tariffs and things, how that works. Something like movies.
Yeah, I don't know how that affects, like, you mean like the animation and stuff?
Yeah, because I know a lot of that stuff is done overseas. Um, obviously they can do the voice work here, or people at home, but they do the voice work here. But the actual animation in a lot of these places, I know, is done overseas in other places. Some of it's done here, but some of it's farmed out, or some of it's just done by other studios where they have stuff overseas. So I wonder if that's going to make a difference as far as something like that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer to that, honestly, or if this is just physical, tangible goods that it only affects. But that's
Yeah, I
also
think it's
two
more
years
like
away. So
goods, but yeah, so I don't know. I- yeah, good question. I have no clue. But this was originally when they were announced, they were both called Across the Spider Verse Part One and Part Two, and was supposed to come out uh
this,
2023, and then the next one was supposed to come out like March of 2024.
well, this one was originally supposed to come out in like 2021, I believe, and then it got
Yeah.
delayed a couple times. Obviously because of COVID-19, and then there were some other delays, and then they moved it to the May or to the June 2023 release. Um, I don't know if that was, obviously some of that is COVID-19 and working conditions. I don't know if some of that was also maybe because it was other stuff coming out. They were just trying to balance their schedule a little bit to try and, when they're looking at profits
Hmm.
and when they can put their tentpole releases in, and try and figure out like when's the best spot for this, or like, what is it? We talked about it last time. Tom Holland's got two movies coming out next year.
Oh,
One of
he's in the
them's,
Odyssey and he's in Spider Man.
and then they pushed the next Spider-Man because of Odyssey.
Yeah,
A,
pushed
because
it
it's a
two
Christopher Nolan
weeks.
movie, so that's gonna kill at the box office. And then poor Tom Holland here is gonna have to be doing press tours for like 6 months straight trying to work on those. It's not cool for him. All right, so uh, we pick up. Uh, did that? No. What? Why did that just close? Okay. Hold on. Okay, we pick back up with oh, God damn it. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. We pick back up with Gwen Stacy in Earth. See, this is kind of messing me up too, where they go across. how they name some of these different Earths. And the thing is, I'm not well versed in the comics, so giving these other comics or these other Earth's names and things is kind of a little weird to me. So bear with me, as I'm sure I'm going to mess some of this up.
Earth 65.
Yeah,
Gwen
in
Stacy.
Earth 65, Gwen Stacy's home Earth, right? We start with her, so this is kind of her story. We get the whole, you know me, I was bit by a radioactive spider, so on and so forth. We see that she's becoming kind of isolated and lonely, right? But we also find out what I didn't know, I don't think anybody knew, was that when we see her kill the lizard in Into the Spider Verse, the lizard she killed was Peter Parker. I did not see that coming. Uh, is that something? Is that something in the comics? Is that something you were aware of, or
Thought I forget if it was alluded to in Into the Spider Verse because she mentions her Peter dying. I don't remember if they alluded to it then, but yes, that is. I believe it is in the comics that her Peter becomes the lizard. And so this Earth number is straight out of the comics as well, Earth 65, um, which is a reference to 1965, which was Gwen Stacy's first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 31. So that's where they kind of get that number from for her.
I know as well when they showed it in Into the Spider Verse, they only showed it from like a shadow point of view. Like they
Mm,
didn't show her actually like killing the lizard or whatever. Like they showed her hitting, like kicking or hitting the
right.
lizard, whatever. And then at some point, I think at some point it goes around. It cuts to we see her like holding Peter. So I think some people may have put pieces together there. Blah blah blah. But it wasn't shown. This one they actually showed the whole thing,
Right.
where she was the one bitten by a spider and so on and so forth. Peter took the potion that turned him into the lizard, and they were fighting. And then she found out that he was the lizard, and now her best friend is, dead. Um, we get a version of the Vulture from an Italian Renaissance themed universe. What the hell is this?
Yeah, how is this for you with the he's like a Shakespearean. Yeah, this is another reference to so the actual Spider-Man event that happened back in 2014, I guess, is when Spider-Verse first actually happened, the comic event. Um
So the actual Spider Verse thing is a fairly new creation.
yes.
This isn't something from like the 80s or 90s. This is like a current modern creation where they decided to have a Spider Verse type thing.
Correct. Yeah, this is a comic book that happened in 2014 and is what they based the 2018 movie off of. So this was, very recent at the time when they were even making the
Okay.
movie that this had just come out. Um, there was, I'm guessing, I don't know if this is for sure, but I don't know because I don't know if they said it in the movie or not. But in the Spider Verse comic, there was a prelude that starts on Earth 311 and takes place at the Globe Theater of Shakespeare times, which is where I think this guy is supposed to kind of fit in at this Vulture variant. Um, like it seems very similar with like Shakespearean
Well,
times.
you might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. And I don't know if the times match up. This looks more like of a Leonardo da Vinci type era. I don't know if that matches up with the Shakespearean time era because I know he did kind of create some flying machines or had drawings or depictions of what he thought flying machines might look like, especially with all the wood and stuff. Um, Also, in one of the Assassin's Creed games that is set during that time period, you do pilot a Leonardo da Vinci type flying machine that's somewhat similar to something like this. Obviously, that's a video game from Ubisoft. Yeah, they have bombs that are kind of similar. Once again, I don't know if Shakespeare was the Shakespeare timeline when all that fits in, but I think Gwen Stacy even makes the comment about Da Vinci or whatever. They even gave him the stereotypical Italian accent too. Jeez.
Yeah, I guess it's around
Um,
the same time. So like Shakespeare lived in 1500s to 1616, and the Earth 311 takes place in like it was also originated in a Marvel comic called Marvel 1602, which took place in an alternate universe where it was 1602 and all the heroes were around. So probably around that time frame.
I will take your word for it and say sure. I there's too many comics for me to get into. Also, before we go any further, start with the animation in the very beginning. I didn't like. I had to rewind it a couple of times because I thought I saw something in the corner of the screen when it first kicked off, and it was a cough. It was like a little animated comic book cough, um, which I thought was just a cute little thing they threw in there. Um, Once again, the animation in this is great. I think I saw they thought they could keep it at the same level, but they ended up having like over 1,000 people working on this one as compared to what they had for 2018 for Into the Spider Verse. But the animation and art styles that they use for different time periods or these different universes is really it's really good, including some things I did not see coming when they popped up. Um, so the Vulture and Gwen Stacy are fighting. All of a sudden, we get her father George is there trying to hunt, um, trying to stop all this and also hunt down Spider Man because he came in when he saw what Spider Woman hovering over Peter Parker after he turned from the Lizard back into Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
So, as with most comics, he is of the opinion that Gwen Stacy is the one that killed Peter Parker. Now, technically, she did, but once again, we go through the whole thing of like the other people in the comics don't necessarily know, and there's misunderstandings and confusion, and he also doesn't know that it's his daughter who is the one behind the mask, and all the typical confusion things we get in your superhero genres and comic
Mm-hmm.
books. It is this a staple? Is something like that a staple that's pretty much across all superhero origins and stories and things like that?
Yeah,
Or
I would
something
say
similar?
pretty much any time that there's like a secret identity and there's somebody close to it like this, you kind of get these scenes where it's not what it looks like and they can't talk about it because then they'd have to reveal who they really are to make sure that the person would understand that that's not really them that killed them. Uh, we don't see it a lot in like the MCU or anything because there's actually, I was just talking about this recently. Um, None of them really have secret identities anymore in the MCU except for maybe Spider-Man now, right? But like most of them are like well-known people, um like
Yeah,
Iron
Ant Man
Man
wrote a
saying
book for
like,
Christ's sake.
yeah, Ant-Man writes a book, Iron Man says I am Iron Man, right? Like Thor is a god from that doesn't have a secret identity. uh Everybody knows about Hulk. Like there is really no secret identities in the MCU, so we don't see it a lot in that, but we see it a lot in like I would say Spider-Man related media or cartoons that are based on secret identities.
Is it the same thing in DC, or is that not really how they operate?
I would say yeah, it's probably I'm trying to think of like an example over there. We've definitely seen stuff like that in some related media where
Obviously, there's Batman where he can't really reveal his secret
Right, right.
identity to other people, but
But even like Superman, right? Like there's times where maybe not killing somebody, but where you have people being against Superman, but then Clark Kent has to be kind of like, oh no, I hear he's a really great guy, but like I can't tell you why because then I'd have to reveal that I'm him, like
yeah,
those type of things where,
I'd have to take
yeah,
off my glasses and put this curl down so you can see that I'm
yes, so
actually
you
Superman.
can see that it's me.
Um, Also, I love the little thing in the beginning of approved by the Comics Code. Um,
Yes,
I thought that was a pretty nifty little thing as well. But yeah, so I think the only ones who would have any secret identity, obviously Spider-Man in the MCU now, because everybody forgot who he was, and Doctor Strange. But he really doesn't have another identity because he's not a surgeon anymore.
right, right. I think people know who he is too. So yeah, I don't think there's any secret identities the way that there typically was
And
in the old comics and
as
cartoons.
we've seen, She-Hulk, they know
Yep.
She-Hulk is. Um, wow, I don't know if we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch. Everybody knows who she is. Daredevil.
So yeah,
Daredevil is one. There you go. There is another guy. There you go. Daredevil.
and the only one who I think really knows who he is Kingpin. I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
watched the
pretty much.
full reboot of the series. I watched the first episode, and they allude to them having history
Yeah.
and knowing of the history. I don't want to spoil it for. I don't want to spoil anything I saw in one episode for anybody who might not have seen it yet. But, so that's why I'm kind of being vague. But they gotta talk about that a little bit in there. Um, so yeah, but this is where we get uh, Miguel O'Hara and Jess Drew, who arrive through dimensional portals to help with the Vulture. Um, I did you have any knowledge of these other two characters before this movie, or are they in the actual comics, or is this something just for the movie?
Oh yeah,
I
no,
know I'm leaning on you heavily a lot, but
no, Miguel O'Hara is like yeah, he's from comic book called Spider-Man 2099.
okay,
Which he was in like a future New York, which they call Nueva, York. Um, and he was big in the 90s just because his design is very 90s comics, so he
yeah,
was he
yeah.
was very popular. Jessica Drew, yes, she is what they call like Spider Woman. This not this type of interpretation of her usually. um
Yeah,
Usually
she's
she's
heavily
like
pregnant here. What is going on
yeah,
with that?
yeah, I don't know, she's typically like like a red suit, um like a red spandex suit with like the type of eyes that her motorcycle goggles were, and like long hair flowing, like long black hair. um that's typically her look. She is in a like a weird rights situation where they have the rights to her even though she's not the same sort of spider character as Spider-Man. Like she's not just like a girl version of Spider-Man. She's like I it's hard to explain.
Like I said, she is heavily pregnant here, and that was just weird because like I'm not saying pregnant women can't do anything, but I know they there's certain activities you probably shouldn't be doing once you're past a certain point, right? So you probably shouldn't be fighting supervillains and like flying around the city, which may be why she's driving, right? Or driving a little motorcycle. But you probably shouldn't be fighting supervillains when you're that far along. Like that doesn't seem. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It just seems a little weird to me. Uh,
I mean, so
we're
the
back.
way that she was, just to clarify, the way she was originally created was back in the 70s because Stan Lee realized that another company may quickly put out a book like that and claim that they have the right to use the name. And I thought we better do it real fast to copyright the name. Uh, So they wanted to protect the name Spider Woman, so another like DC couldn't
Okay.
just create Spider Woman and have her. So they just did that. Um, so that is kind of how she became. She's very different. Like, uh, she's usually British. She's from London, England. Um, just like a totally different backstory than your typical. She's like a Hydra spy at some point. Like, it's very different from like your Spider Man, character.
So they cut us back to Earth 1610 in Brooklyn. So this is where Spider Into the Spider Verse took place. Miles Morales he's kind of grown a little bit, as we see. He got a little mustache at some point, which when you're going through puberty and you're like 15, 16 years old, those things are gonna happen. Um, but as with all Spider-Man, he's having issues because he's trying to balance being Spider-Man, and he's in this special school, and he's trying to balance stuff from his parents, and his dad is a police lieutenant who's about to make captain. Um, and they don't know what's going on, so we kind of get some of the same thing again, right? Where it's he can't, and it makes it even more of an issue because he's a 16-year-old boy, right? So he's going through all this other stuff as a 16-year-old, and we find out he's missing the other Spider people because they're the only ones who can kind of understand what he's going through. And also, he has a crush and is falling in love with Gwen Stacy, which I can kind of get. Like, after I know I made the comment before during Into the Spider Verse, I didn't know who Haley Steinfeld was. I haven't watched her in anything that I know of other than Into the Spider Verse. I might have seen something that she was in and not realized it. I have to look up her filmography. Um, but by all accounts, she's a fantastic actress. The only other way I really know her is she is the girlfriend, possibly fiance or wife of Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Um, that's really all I know of her. But I can kind of understand why he kind of fell for Gwen Stacy, and I kind of understand why people have a thing for Haley Steinfeld. Like, I get it.
So
Um,
you haven't seen Hawkeye? She's in Hawkeye as Kate Bishop.
I have not seen Hawkeye.
Okay, and she's also in a movie I keep wanting to pick. She's in one of the Pitch Perfect movies, or two of the Pitch Perfect movies, I think.
I haven't seen those either.
Yeah,
Um,
they're not
so,
streaming
but like I
anywhere.
said,
Every time I go to pick it.
she might have been in something, and I might have seen her in something. Once I look up her filmography, I might be like, oh, okay, like
Oh,
that
you know
happens a
where I
lot.
remember the first time I saw her, and I totally forgot this was her. 2010's remake of True Grit. She
No,
was in that as a kid. Like, she was 13 when she filmed that. But I saw that one in the theaters. That starred Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon and Josh Brolin. Pretty stacked cast. But yeah, she was in that. That was the first time I saw her or anything.
so he's missing. He's got a crush on her, right? He's missing her, but he's missing the other Spider people because he can't really connect with anybody. Even he runs into his dorm room buddy, and after he catches who we see as the Spot. Is the Spot a real villain, or is this something they made up just for the movie?
The Spot is a real villain. Yeah, he's been around. Let me see if I can get his um Wikipedia page pulled up. He's been around since the since the 80s.
Okay, so he does have some time. Okay, not trying to not trying to knock him, but they also brought up, um, he was called the villain of the week, which apparently is what set him off on his even more on his vengeance tour. That really irked him, which I get. Um, but so even uh when he's coming into his dorm room because he's got to have a meeting with his parents and this guidance counselor, right? Uh, he, there's his friend Genki. He's in the dorm room and he's trying to get him to call the police, but he's like, nope, that's how it starts. First, I'm helping you with this, and then I'm doing this, and next thing you know, I'm the guy in the chair. So we kind of get a little play on that. What was it? Ned from the Holland Spider movies ended up being the guy in the chair. He was proud of and happy to do that.
Yeah, yeah. In the Spider-Man movies, yeah, Ned, yeah. So what Genki is saying he doesn't want to be the guy in the chair, right, or something here in this
Yeah, he
movie.
eventually is like, no, he doesn't want. Basically, he doesn't want to be Ned. Which I mean, hey, look, in all honesty, if you're gonna be like best buds with a superhero, right? Like you either got to be all in or all out. You can't be halfway. So I kind of get it. Like if he's gonna do this, like he's got to accept the risk that comes with it of being friends with a superhero. Villain's gonna come after you. You're gonna be on call all weird hours, and they're gonna want you to do stuff at weird times of the day, right? Or you just be like, nah, man, I'm just not up for that. So I can kind of respect that of him saying, nah, this just isn't for me. I get it. Um, so uh, the spot was actually at the Alchemax uh, collider explosion, and that's what caused it. Um,
Not
he
their
also
first run in
reveals.
though. Yeah, what did you think of the fact that this is the guy that they throw the bagel at in the first movie?
I forgot about the bagel man. Like okay, I'm gonna have to watch the first one again. Just one because it was a fantastic damn movie. I wanted to watch it again before this, but I just ran out of time. I couldn't really pull that off. Um, but yeah, he was the guy who threw the bagel at him, and I, I like the little things they do in these movies. Like one of them was just like there was a sign for like cola, the generic brand or whatever, and it was just it's little stuff in there that, and I'm sure there's so many other Easter eggs and little things that I didn't get a chance to look at, but the little stuff that I caught was great, and I didn't know about the bagel thing till he brought it up. You threw a bagel at me. Well, I've probably thrown bagels at a lot of people.
This is one of
But
my
come to
favorite just like this is one of my favorite things because it's such a throwaway scene in that first movie where it's just like a comedic thing of, oh, I'm gonna throw it. Like it's the only thing he has on hand at that point, so he turns around and just throws the bagel at him. And it's a guy that you're thinking we're never gonna see again, whatever. Sequel comes around. I'm sure they did not have that in mind when they made it. And when they were coming up with ways to have him tied in, they're like, what if it's the guy that got the bagel thrown at him? And he has like this, you know, full like that's his villain origin moment type of thing of
getting a bagel tossed
bagel
chucked at
thrown
your
at him.
head. Yeah.
And then right after that, being at the place where that Spider-Man also has it destroy and it creates him to be the spot. Like I really love the way that they set him up and had his creation so he could be like, because this whole time he's saying, like, I'm your arch nemesis, and
And he's like, you're
Miles
just
is
the
kind
villain of
of,
the week.
yeah, Miles is just playing it off like, haha. But what we learn also, not to skip too far ahead, but when we do learn about the canon events and stuff, they say that the captain dies at the hand of your arch nemesis. So it is kind of planting this thing that this actually is his arch nemesis now. But like, Miles never thought of him that way until like the spot has become way more powerful as they go, and now he kind of is like, oh crap, I gotta take care of this guy.
Then we get uh, the spot. Obviously, he blames him for everything. Miles doesn't even recognize him until he brings up the bagel thing or whatever. Which, in all fairness, why would he recognize him? At the time, he just looked like some random henchman in a lab coat, right? Like, how many of these henchmen in lab coats did Miles like beat up or chuck bagels at?
Right.
So he also reveals to him that the radioactive spider that bit him and gave him his powers came from an alternate universe, Earth 42. while Spot was testing the collider, right? So now we're starting to get more into this whole thing of how all this stuff came to be. Um, because initially we just see the spider bite Miles and Into the Spider Verse, and it's kind of the same typical origin story, right? He's bit by it's the same one we get over and over and over again in that movie, right? I was bit by a radioactive spider, and you don't think anything of it because, as we see, I guess that is supposed to be the canon event, right? That's something supposed to happen, somewhat. But he's bit by a radioactive spider, he gets his powers. We come to find out, that was a radioactive spider from another dimension, so that wasn't supposed to happen. Um, um, so Miles is late getting back home to his dad's party for making police captain, right? And he's got to trying to get a cake, and he's trying to add this entire speech on a cake, and the lady's just looking at him like, dude, I can't fit all that on top of the cake. Like, come on. And of course, he gets there, he's late, parents are mad, shows him the cake, and the frosting is all over the place, and the cakes are messed up. Why? Because that's the thing that happens with superheroes. And once again, he can't really explain it to his parents
And the cake says,
because,
"I'm not proud."
yeah, yeah, that's what
It got all
that's
messed
what
up
ends up
from it. Yeah.
being visible after it's all messed up, right? And once again, because he's a teenage boy, and it's hard to talk to your parents about anything as a teenage boy in general, and the fact that you're Spider-Man, and the fact I can't remember. Does his dad still think Spider-Man is the one who killed his brother, his uncle, or have they squashed their beef over that one?
Yeah, I think they know that it wasn't him.
But I know at one point, like he believed Spider-Man killed his brother,
Yeah, it was very
right?
similar to what you said at the beginning about,
Yeah,
Gwen standing over Peter. It was very
yeah.
the same exact sort of situation uh
But
with the uncle.
which once again he actually did but he didn't know he was a villain at the time, and it was that whole thing. So he gets grounded, which okay, cool, but like, look, you got to ground kids. I'm not against that. I'm trying to figure out how are you going to ground him when he has a dorm room at another school, which I guess he's supposed to stay at. I guess I would just stay at like dorm room and do whatever from there, like instead of coming home. They had an argument about the guidance count earlier. The guidance council wants him to go to Princeton because of the scientific program they have there. That's where he wants to go. His mom and dad don't want him to go to Princeton because it's in New Jersey and it's too far away from Brooklyn, which I don't know the whole geographical aspects. It's not that far away, I don't think. Um, but maybe it's far enough away that they feel they won't see him enough for having him around. While this is going on, the Spot transports himself into a void, learns to use his portals to travel to other universes, and he's starting to get. If he goes to all the Alchemex, he figures out if he goes to all the Alchemex colliders in other dimensions, he's going to get more powerful, and that's what his plan ultimately is to
So I just
do.
did it real quick of Brooklyn to Princeton on Google on like Apple Maps. Hour 50-minute drive or a 3-hour train. It's not that far. Like,
He can come home on the weekends.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Kids go to school further away than that. So
Yeah,
it's just that she
he can
doesn't
come
want to
home on the
lose him
weekend.
like that. But I think he has a really good speech here where he's like, "You guys went off. You guys want me to do this. You put me in the school to fulfill my, you know, potential, but then you're not going to let me actually go and fulfill my potential."
Well, it's not only that; it's a cultural aspect as well. Miles Morales, or at least his mom, is Puerto Rican, I believe. Correct?
Yes. Yep.
Um, or was it Dominican?
No, she's Puerto Rican. Yep.
Is his dad what ethnicity is his dad?
African American.
Um,
So he's a
so
half. Puerto Rican, half African American. Yeah.
But at least when he's going to school in Brooklyn, he's still around some of his same heritage, the same kind of people. He still has the same. He's not necessarily losing himself. He's not. He's still around people that he can connect with on a cultural and racial aspect, and kind of keep some sort of an identity. I think his parents are also worried. Princeton is a very prestigious school. It's an Ivy League school, right? They're not easy to get into. Um, but there's also the fear from some parents when you go to prestigious schools like that, you can lose parts of yourself. You can lose parts of your identity because um, whether it's of the lack of representation there, um, how you might feel as an outcast because there may not be as many of your kind at that school that you can be around or bond with. There's the thought and aspect of you may be forced to assimilate in order to fit in places like that where uh I mean the going to a school like that, these are the people who you're gonna have connections with who later on in life, you're going to lean on. And people who go to schools like that do lean on those connections from Princeton, Harvard, Yale, stuff like that. It's a very elite group of people, and that's kind of a small brotherhood. But sometimes doing that, you give up other parts of your identity, and I think that's something his parents are looking at more as well, and maybe why they wanted him to go to a school in Brooklyn or someplace closer to home was so he doesn't necessarily lose himself. So he doesn't, and it's brought up later, like don't ever, when his mom tells him, don't ever, don't ever listen to him when they tell him you don't belong, right? And that's something he's probably going to have to deal with. We see him deal with it different aspects in this in the movie, but that's something they're probably worried about as well. So he gets grounded. He's stuck at home. It goes up to like 3 or 4 months or something. Which what was the longest you were ever grounded for? Did that really happen when you were a teenager? What was going on in the Wee Jordan household?
For the first time, what was the question?
What was the longest you had ever been grounded for?
Oh, yeah, maybe a week. I wasn't a big troublemaker. And grounding was pretty much usually like you can't play your Game Boy or your game for like a week or whatever. But
I think mine was
I did find where they hid it, and when they weren't there, I would play it
shame.
and
I
put it
hope
back
Mr. and
and
Mrs.
put it.
Weekend are not listening right now.
Oh, they know.
If
I've told them before.
well, they probably already knew as well. Um, uh, so forgot to mention as well is that Spider Woman was recruited by Miguel O'Hara and Jestru to help them with their interdimensional fighting of these villains because there's these incursions that are happening, right? And her dad is about to actually arrest her. Um, he was legitimately about to arrest her even after she pulled off the mask and showed that she was his daughter, because once again he just feels all he the evidence to him points that she was the one who killed Peter Parker. So he kind of is stuck between being a dad and being being a dad at that point and being police captain. Um, so she gets recruited to work with this group. Does this group have a name, or I don't remember if they mentioned it.
Oh, good question. They I don't know if they actually call themselves anything. It's the Yeah, it just says a multiversal society of known as the Spider Society. There you go. That's what they are.
Oh
They're a
yeah.
Spider Society.
So she gets one of their little wristwatch band thingies, and she's able to travel to 1610, where she catches back up with Miles. What Miles doesn't know is she's actually there tracking the spot. Um, she puts one of her devices to keep an eye on the spot, but while she's there, she catches up with Miles, and they go out and they do some spider stuff. They reconnect, and you can kind of tell there's a chemistry there, right? And they both have feelings for each other. You can tell that they have feelings for each other. And she brings up the fact that in every other universe, being Gwen Stacy for Spider-Man doesn't have a good outcome. And we've seen that outcome at least once in
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
yes, which I guess was lifted directly from the comics, right?
Yes. Yep.
But apparently this happened, like, it's not a good outcome in any universe to be Gwen Stacy and fall in love with a Spider-Man. Now, she doesn't basically tell him, like, I'm gonna die if that happens, but, like, we as the crowd, if we have any knowledge of this, know this. But you can kind of see Miles' wheels turning, like, well, does it have to end bad? Like, you know. But at some point, she goes back to catch up with the Spot. She runs off, she goes to where the Spot was, where she sees that, where she follows, she catches up with the Spot and figures out what he's trying to do, right? Where he goes into a void, and that's where he starts learning to use the portals, and he's gonna try and get more powerful. So Gwen has to go after him, and Miles decides he's gonna go after Gwen because he loves this girl, and he's having issues with the family and everything else, and he's trying to run away from those problems. Once again, another common superhero trope. At some point, you run away from your problems before you have to go back and face it. Next, we're Earth 5101. This is where we meet Paviter Prabhakar.
Yep. There you go.
In Mumbai?
Yep. It's a mix of Mumbai and Manhattan. Yep.
Which I thought was clever, right? I did think that was clever. This guy's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool Spider-Man. Got the great body, got the great hair, right? Got the great life. And this is where we also run into Hobie Brown, an English punk rock type Spider-Man. Where they're all fighting the Spot, but apparently, once again, they realize, like, Miles is not supposed to be there. There's fighting, there's all kinds of stuff that happens, and Gwen gets a notification of, what does it say? What's the event that happens? I forget. I got bumped on it too many
times. You mean like the canon event that is being
canon
offered?
event?
Yeah.
A canon event. Yeah, that a canon event is going to happen. I thought the canon event is that Spider-Man's Gwen Stacy is in the back of this bus that he's trying to hold up. But then he also sees that there's a little girl that's trapped, and then this police officer is trying to save her. So I thought at some point the canon event was going to be that Gwen Stacy's death, because once again, it's brought up that is never a good thing, right? And I forget what her name is. I don't want to mispronounce it if I look it up, but that's his Gwen Stacy. So the canon event is not that. The canon event is actually the police captain is supposed to die.
Captain Singh.
But Miles doesn't allow that to happen. Miles saves the little girl and saves Captain Singh, which now causes more issues in the Spider-Verse. Causes the universe to actually starts collapsing. Like, the universe is collapsing into himself. This is where Uh, this is where eventually all of them are taken to Earth 928, the universe of Spider People, which is, as you talked about, Nueva York, the New York, and the what in his New York.
Yep.
Their whole job is to combat multiversal threats. So everybody there is Spider-Man or a villain, and we see so many different spider. There's a cowboy dude on a horse, and
Yeah.
and even Miles is like, "Why does the horse need a mask?" Which is great. I cracked up at that. I don't know why that tickled me so much. The fact that he put the mask on the horse, and even he was like, "Why does the horse need a mask?" This is where we see Donald Glover make another appearance in the Spider-Man universe once again as a villain. And one of the things I liked in this is you see all these other, like I said, all these little touches from other movies and from number one, and it's so many different things when you start looking around it to tie all of these different Spider-Man movies and comics and universes
And games,
together.
the
Yeah,
Insomniac
yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah.
shows up.
I
Yeah.
saw there was the Insomniac Spider-Man game, and this is where
Or how
we
about
find out the truth.
the car, Peter parked car instead of Peter Parker? Did you see
Yeah,
that?
we get so many different things, and you're just like, what is like? I'm watching this, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like,
That's probably my favorite joke in the whole movie when I saw it in theaters was the Peter parked car. I'm like, okay, this is good.
for me, it was the
Dad
horse.
joke.
Yeah, for me, it was the Peter Park car was great. That was number three. Number two was Donald Glover popping back up
Yes.
again.
Yeah. So you remember him? He was in Homecoming, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, what? Yeah, what did what did he play
He
in
played
Homecoming?
he played Uncle Aaron, but Aaron Davis is what his license said when and he talks about how he has a nephew in
Yeah.
the area, which is referring to Miles. So he
Okay,
is his Uncle Aaron, and that's why in this movie he's there with the Prowler suit on.
because honestly the biggest thing I remember was when he got stuck to the car. He's like, "Dude, I got ice cream in here.
Yes.
Like this is gonna it'll melt in a couple hours." He's like, "Come on, man, I got ice cream in here." Okay, so and he was Uncle Aaron in that movie, and so basically they're saying in that universe, in that movie, in that universe, he ends up turning into the Prowler, and this is why we see him. This is what
Mm-hmm.
we see him as in this movie.
Yep.
Correct? Okay. I remember seeing him and I was like, oh, this was a great shout out. And I just went through. I'm about to start season 6 of Community, and I love the little Spider-Man nods that they put all through after like season 2 or 3. After that whole thing happened online with people trying to get him to be Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
like he's in Spider-Man pajamas in one episode, and a bunch of other things. Donald Glover's a treasure. That guy's awesome. But when we catch back up with Peter B. Parker, right? And he's got a daughter, Mayday Parker, which, look, I'm not saying he's a bad dad, right? I think his wife kind of comments on this later. I'm not really sure if you should be bringing your infant child along on adventures like this.
And
One,
giving
it,
her a web slinger.
yeah, the web slinger one definitely not happening. Two, we don't know what the interdimensional travel is going to do to the human body and things, especially when she's still forming bones at that stage of her life, right? Like we don't know
Right. Yeah.
how that's going to cause her to happen. What's going to happen with her later in life? Two, come on, it's kind of dangerous. I get it. He's a happy and proud dad. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad dad. I'm just saying, like, even his wife was like, "Did you?" No, we talked about that. But yeah,
She's
yeah.
got her day pass on. She'll be fine. Um
The biggest thing I love with that was she had a little knit spider mask.
yes. No, my
That was
favorite
just
bit of
awesome.
that is at the end when, Gwen comes to get him and he's like, "Don't tell your mom," and she just does the like over
Yeah,
her
that's
eyes.
what I realized. Where it was like she had like a little knit mask that
Yeah,
like her mom or something made, and I
love
was
it.
like, okay. That's kind of awesome. Uh, his infant daughter Mayday. So Miguel explains. Okay, basically what I said. Each Spider Person story contains the canon events. You get bit by the spider, right? There's a police captain that gets killed. These things aren't supposed to be disrupted. Otherwise, cause universe collapse.
Their
Eventually, that can
uncle.
cause Uncle Ben or something like that can cause the entire multiverse to collapse. Um, so what he realizes is that Spot is going to like his dad is that police captain in his life in
Yeah, because
his
he's getting
Earth
promoted, right? That's what they've been
in a couple
alluding
of
to
days.
early in the movie, that
Yeah,
he's
his
getting a
promotion's
promotion.
coming up.
Yeah.
He's getting promoted to captain, and that's where. And when he had a fight with Spot earlier, there was some stuff thrown, and you kind of saw something that happened in Miles' head or something he saw,
Yes.
and we didn't get the full gist of it, but we saw like what we appear to be his dad running towards something, and there's danger, blah blah blah. We don't have the context. We don't get the full story, and it doesn't looks like it wasn't even fully drawn in. It was just like the basic sketches and pencilings of it, right? Okay, cool. But that's when Miles realizes, like, oh, that canon event in my timeline is my dad dying, and he's like, well, we can stop this. And they're trying to explain to him that you can't stop these things. If you stop it, it causes further erosion, and ultimately it can cause the entire universe to collapse on itself. Like as hard as it is, these are the things that make you Spider-Man, and these are the things that have to happen. So before we go any further, what are your thoughts on that aspect? That like, in everything we've seen, right? The three Spider-Man movies, right? Or at least from what I've seen, the three Spider-Man movies. I don't know if it happened in the animated series. Obviously, in the comics, it probably happens over and over. Like you said, there's the canon events. There's the death of Uncle Ben, right? There's the Gwen Stacy death. There's a relationship with MJ, and they kind of go in and out. It looks like these things kind of happen in all of our different Spider media. So, what do you think on what's your thoughts on the whole aspect of these are things that make Spider-Man? They have to happen.
I think it's a really cool idea in the fact of explaining why all of this stuff continues to happen in these adaptations that we have, right? Like, look, the whole reason they didn't show the origin in Homecoming is because everybody's aware of his origin, and because they're like, "Well, we got to see Uncle Ben die again," and they were like, "No, like we've seen it." But you know, showing that in this, um, we've kind of already experienced some of that in Into the Spider-Verse, when all those spider people were coming together and saying like great power comes great responsibility, and that my Uncle Ben used to say that, and they all go to Aunt May, right? Because they all have
Yeah,
that through line of people that are in their lives. And I think it's a cool way to kind of establish why. It's almost like a universal rule. Do I buy it? Do I think that this is actually set in stone? No, I don't. I think there's an out here in this, when he says, when they're talking about the universe corroding and stuff, he's like, I thought that was the spot. Because in the India instance, the spot was there. That this could really be because of him. Now, when we talk about like Miguel's backstory, the spot wasn't active at that time. So maybe that's a hole in my theory. But I do think Miles saying like, I can do both. I can save my dad and save the universe. I think that is obviously where they're going in Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think he will kind of prove that. And it could be because he's an anomaly and that he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man, right? Like maybe he's able to break the canon in that type of way, because as Miguel points out, that spider was for Spider-Man in Earth 42. You were
yeah,
not supposed to
yeah,
become Spider-Man. And the reason you're Spider-Man is the reason that Peter Parker died. He would have survived and actually stopped the collider. It's like this domino effect. It's like it seemingly seems like because it's this domino effect, because he's a Spider-Man now, he has to go through those canon events. But I wouldn't be shocked if the answer is that he doesn't, because he is that anomaly. Um, that would be kind of what I think. But I like the idea behind it of kind of explaining to us as viewers that are already used to these events happening that they are always supposed to happen, and it can kind of. I like when they kind of bring in meta stuff like that.
So for me, I kind of harken this back to uh, Infinity War and Endgame, where Doctor Strange told him he looked when he was talking with Iron Man, and he told him what was it, 14 million different possibilities when they fought Thanos or something like that. And there was one outcome where they won, right? Where they were successful in defeating Thanos.
Yeah.
Um, whatever the number was, it was a very high number.
1 in 14 million or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of look at it the same way here. Like, I kind of do buy their aspect of the canon events because if you look at the multiverse, and different people have different thoughts on the multiverse, and I'm not smart enough to know anything truly about it, right? But the aspect of there are different variations of people. If you're going through the multiverse and the same thing is happening in just about every single one, right? Then maybe that is the universe telling you that is something that is supposed to happen. Like, and the outcomes of changing it are drastic and can be worse. We'll skip ahead here. As you said, we find out the spider that bit him was from Earth 42, right? Not Peter. Miles accidentally gets sent back to Earth 42 later on when he's trying to go home. That universe does not have a Spider-Man. And that universe is like a total hellscape because there
Yeah.
is no Spider-Man. And everything is turned upside down. So had that spider not bit him, then that spider would have bitten somebody else in Earth 42, and that Earth would have been in a much different situation. I don't know. I like you said. I think offers a good explanation of why we do keep seeing the same things. Even something as far as like Batman, we know his parents were going to the opera, his parents were killed. And a lot of these same things happen in the Batman universe. Superman, Krypton's blown up, and his parents
Right.
send him away. He ends up in Kansas and in Smallville, right? So I don't know who came up with the aspect of that for the story, but they might. I think they need a raise because they might have just like been able to explain comic stuff to the average person greatly, and I appreciate that. But yeah, he's not buying this, and then he's basically fighting all the other Spider-Men and
Yes.
Spider-Women, and we get some more great shout outs here because we get at some point he's on the run and they try and trap him because they know if he goes home, right?
He's going to stop. He's going to try to stop his dad from
Yeah,
dying.
Miguel knows if he goes home, he's gonna try and stop this from happening. So he tries to trap him in one of these little cubes. He breaks out using something that
Hobby,
he was
right? Hobie was
taught him earlier about using electricity. Don't use your fingertips, use your palms,
yeah.
right? So he's able to get out, and then it starts this whole Benny Hill kind of chase of all through the Spider Verse, right? And also, I love of Miles correcting him where he came up with the whole name of the Spider, or he's like, oh, it's the Spider Verse. He's like, that's kind of silly. And then he came up with this really long name, and that's when he realized, yeah, this is kind of silly too.
It's
Like,
funny that he thinks it's silly when he calls his people like the Spider Society, but like Spider Verse was too silly.
also, I don't trust that guy. I didn't trust him from the very beginning. So I'm getting I'm getting ultimate bad guy vibes for like the next movie from him. Uh, but yeah, he's going all around. At some point, he's like, "He's Spider Man is loose. Stop him!" And then
The pointing
we
meme.
get we get the pointing meme from like 8,000 different Spider people. Uh, but this is where we also find out. This is also later on where Peter finds out that he's the original incursion. He was never meant to be. And this is where we get the word. Oh, Peter. Oh, not Peter. I'm sorry. Miles doesn't like being called kid. I guess each one has their. Everyone has their thing, right? Spot doesn't want to be the villain of the week, right? Um, Miles doesn't like being called kid, even though he's probably like the youngest one there, or one of the youngest ones there. Technically, he's still a kid, but I get it. We all have our things. But this is where he finds out he's the original incursion. Like you said, this is where he finds out that like he wasn't meant to be. He's the reason that Spider-Man died, and is the reason it's all happened. Um, and now he realizes that like the other ones knew but didn't tell him, and that's why they never came to visit him. That's why he lost contact when they never came to visit him, because at some point they probably would have felt bad and told him. So he fights his way through, eventually makes it back and gets sent to, or gets in. They didn't name it very well. The take her homer thing or whatever they called it. Uh,
Oh yeah, what did they call that? Like the
home girl, I don't know, whatever it was called. But because he can turn himself invisible, he's able to sneak back into that lab, mess with the computers, and get himself to be taken back home, or he thinks. What he doesn't realize is when he's scanned, because he was bit by the spider from Universe 42, that's where he's sent back to. But we don't know that. They played this very, very well.
I was gonna say, did you
Where,
know then or did you not?
no.
Because
So he gets sent back, right? The city looked a little different, but I also chalked it up to like the animation style of stuff that they were doing. So I didn't take it as the city looked different because it was technically a different city. I
and it
just
was
thought they were doing
raining
something.
in both,
Yeah,
so that can
there
look
was a lot of
different.
neon there. I just thought it was something they were choosing to do different visually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gwen Stacy gets sent back home because this is kind of her fault, and they don't want her around anymore. So she gets sent back home. She has a talk with her dad, where they realize her dad explains to her that he can't arrest her anymore because he quit the police force. Um, which was he a captain in that police force or no?
If who was captain?
Was Gwen Stacy's dad, was he a captain on the
Yes.
police force he was in?
Yep.
So that kind of stops that one from happening
Yep. So
right there. So like
there's
there's
a
going to be
loophole.
some changes in her universe because he quit the police force. He's no longer there. But also Hobie quit at one point. He pieced out on everybody. He's very
Right when
punk
he
rock.
was,
He's very anti-authority.
yeah. Once they
Um,
had him like pretty much telling he pretty much quit as soon as Miles broke out of the thing and they started chasing Miles. He said,
yeah,
"Peace out."
I'm out. Yeah, I quit, and he went back to his own universe. But her Gwen Stacy's dad has a present, and as soon as I saw the box, I was, because when she got back, she was trying to go to. I guess she was trying to go back to Miles's universe, but she got locked out of the system, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Access denied. Access denied. So she can't use her little wrist watch pad thing. But her dad is like, "Oh, some weird dude dropped us off. He was a character." And as soon as I saw the box, I was like, "Oh, Hobie left his thing." which will allow her to. And,
Yep.
and like I don't know if we'll see it. I hope he's around in the next one because something tells me either he knows more about what's going on, or like he's got some other connection to this because he between him letting Miles know about using his palms, like he's setting a lot of events in motion here, right? That
Right.
others aren't really doing. He's giving his wrist pad up to Gwen so she can travel between universes, right? Which my next question is: A, was he able to get another wrist pad, or B, is he now stuck in Gwen Stacy's universe?
I think what this shows is that he's been working on his own, and that is what he gives to her, and he's able to use it to get out of there as well.
So I hope we see more of him in Beyond the Spider Verse because I did like his character, and I think he's gonna add a lot more to do. But so she goes to try and catch up with Miles, and just like a lot of movies when they do something great where Miles goes home, right, and the others are after him and they're at different places they think he might be. So one of them is tracking his dad. One of them's at the apartment. They're looking at all these other places that he might be. And we're not seeing the full picture because nobody's catching up with anybody. We get uh, Uncle Aaron is alive all of a sudden, which threw me off for a second. But I was like, okay, maybe these incursions cause some weird thing to happen. Um, he's talking to his mom. His mom initially brings up his hair is different, which once again I didn't catch. I just thought maybe something happened and his hair got cut or something. Maybe his hair was a little shorter after going through some dimensional portholes, or between his fight and he's swinging around. Like a lot of it was very fast paced action, so I thought maybe like he lost some of his hair a little bit. But his mom brings that up, which I didn't catch on first viewing. I just thought she was making a comment that his hair is a little short.
And she doesn't know who
Um,
Spider Man is when he reveals Spider Man, right? I mean, that's a big
yeah,
tell as well.
he reveals himself, and she's like, "Who's Spider Man? Is this one of your comics cons or something?"
Yeah.
And it's still I'm still not getting it. And then, like I said, he meets up. Aaron's there, and they're going out, and there's something sinister brewing, but we can't really tell because Aaron's planning something, and he's supposed to know the plan. And then we see the mural of his dad is dead. And that's when he realizes he gets knocked out by something, and that's when we realize he's not in the right Earth.
Yep.
And it's explained later he's in Earth 42 because he comes face to face with uh he comes face to face with the Prowler. The Prowler reveals himself as Miles. And so Miles is facing Miles. He's tied up on a heavy bag.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen Stacy went to Peter. She catches up with Peter B. Parker, which is where what we talked about earlier, where he decides he's gonna take his baby on another adventure. Probably not the best idea, but hey, he's a dad, so do your thing. Um, we see Spider Ham. We see Spider Noir. We see a couple other characters as they're going back into a portal, back to Miles, what we think is Miles' world. We see the Spot getting ready to attack that universe, and then that's it.
Yeah, then it's over.
And there's no credit scene.
Nope.
This movie was also like 2 hours and 20 minutes. So
Yep,
not
220.
complaining that it was not complaining that it was too long. It was longer than I thought or anticipated. Kept me engaged the whole time,
Hmm.
but it was one of those like when I saw it, I was like, "Wow, this is longer than I thought." That's when I texted you too, and then I would pause it a couple times, or I'd hit up, I hit up on my remote to see how long it was up, and I was like, "Oh my god, there's still an hour left." Oh my god, there's still 36 minutes left of this movie.
Right.
Once again, not that it was a bad thing, but it was like this is moving at a slower pace than I anticipated. Um, okay, so let's go through some notes real quick. Um, we get a couple other weird sequences in the middle. We get a live action sequence where the spot pops out to someone in a live action universe, right?
Yeah, she's
Pretty
from
cool.
the Sony Venom films.
I didn't know who she was or if she held any significance. What does she do, or who is she? What does she do?
She's a shopkeeper in the Venom franchise that is
Okay,
close to Eddie Brock and Venom.
okay,
A
that
store they
whole thing makes a
frequent,
little more
pretty much. Is that
that
it?
makes a little more sense now. Like so, and that's also why she really wasn't phased by what she saw,
Right, right.
because she like so this cartoon dude just pokes out of a black hole in the middle of your shop and starts asking you questions or start trying to get stuff, and she was not impressed by it. I was like, what do you mean? Like this, it didn't freak her out. That makes a little more sense. If she's been around Venom and Eddie Brock, then I get that. There was also a Lego universe, Earth 113-122. It was animated by a 14-year-old named Preston Mutanga, who was hired after Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were impressed with his Twitter video recreating the entire trailer with
Yep.
Legos.
Pretty cool.
14-year-old got hired to work on a major motion picture because he was that good at what he did. That is bananas to me. Also, I'm going to pull out a line from Community. What happened with Legos?
They're still around.
No. Like, okay, so in Community season 3, Michael K. Williams' character, the professor who was in prison for 25 years, uh, when he went to prison, Legos were not a big thing. They were just regular random blocks. And now they're these elaborate, intricate things. You need instructions, and you can order certain Lego pieces in the mail because I
Yeah.
deliver them all the time. Like one random block if it breaks or like it gets lost or something.
My friend Jack
And like
is a big Lego collector.
and like when he was talking with the class, he had one of the questions. He's like, "What happened with Legos?" And everybody was just kind of quiet. He was like, "They were just regular blocks," and like same thing. But yeah, they made a Lego universe, which I thought was pretty awesome. Production on the film was completed on May 20th, 2023, 13 days before the release date.
Yeah.
They were going down to the wire with this one, and you got to imagine they there were some late days and nights because I'm sure they put a lot of publicity out before that. They couldn't really delay it. They couldn't delay it again because I'm sure movies were taking pre-order tickets for it and everything. So
Yeah,
uh,
and like the big, how they always have the what's it called? The
cardboard cutouts in the theaters
red
and
carpet,
billboards and yeah.
premiere as well, which is usually a couple weeks or a week before the movie comes out everywhere else too. So
Well, actually, that was
that one
May
was
20th. That
close.
was
Yeah, right.
10 days before the red carpet premiere in Regency Village. So they were really cutting it close. Spider Punk is an alternate universe mixture of both Spider Man and the original Prowler. The original Hobie Brown was the first Prowler and a petty thief turned hero after being redeemed by Spider. Aaron Davis would become the Prowler of Ultimate Marvel Universe in 2011. Also, what I didn't mention, some a little jealousy from Miles
Yeah.
about Hobie. Um, I don't know. Do you think Gwen had a relationship with Hobie,
I don't think
or do
so.
you think it was strictly platonic?
I think it was platonic. I think that he's just showing a little bit of his insecurity there when you see this guy that you're like, oh, who's Hobie, and then you see him and he's like this real cool like guy
Yeah,
that's
he's like the
very
coolest
like
dude out there. Yeah.
yeah, and he
He
has
even
like
asked him. He's like, "How?" He was
very
like, "How are you cooler
carefree.
with your mask off?"
Right, yeah, he's a very carefree guy that like is confident in himself that it's like I could see why he's
And,
a little,
well, okay. At first, he's like, "Oh, you left your sweatshirt at my place." That's one thing. But when he's like, "You left your toothbrush too," like, yeah, I look. I'm not saying it's right, but also he's a 15, 16-year old, right? They're not the most mature. They don't always act the best way. They don't have the best thinking process.
right.
I probably would have been along the same lines of like, oh, there's something going on here? Like, now, in all fairness, he's not in a relationship with Gwen either, mainly because they're in different universes and they haven't had a chance to make that connection really. There's obviously something there, but who knows if they'll get a chance to really act upon that at all. But um I'm not saying his reactions and his jealousy were right, but I can understand. Like I get where his feelings are coming from now. Also, according to IMDb, there are at least three different versions of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which contain changes as altered dialogue, editing, scene, and pacing, as well as changes to the audio and sound mixing. Second version of the movie was released 1 week after the movie's original release, after reports of audio issues in several locations. Another version, which is based off the second version, includes additional changes to dialogue, scene, editing, audio mixing, and was released digitally on August 8th, 2023. Now I have the disc. I don't know which version is on my disc, or if they have, uh, if there's a way to select those from the disc.
I don't think there is. They're very slight changes. I'll see if I can find a
So
list while
I saw that one of them was released after it was taken down or taken out of the theaters. One of them was like uploaded to pirate sites or something. So they're out there. But
all right, let's see. I have a Screen Rant article here that might have some of the changes. So, uh yes, okay. So in the digital version, Miles remembers Miguel saying that the spider that bit him is not from his dimension. But in the theater version, Miles thinks that to himself with text boxes. That's the version I saw in theaters.
okay,
Um, theater version versus digital version for the Lego Spider-Man has the digital version has him without his mask, and the theatrical version had him with his mask on when he's talking to Miguel. Do you remember what we saw?
I can't honestly.
Um, yeah, there's videos that have
Show you like the
different
side
things.
by side or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Also, something we forgot to mention: there was a goddamn spider T Rex.
yeah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. There's some very small changes. I don't know if this is like part of it is stuff that they had wanted to do and couldn't get to.
In time for the release.
Yeah, so they did like the quick text boxes instead of replaying the audio, or if it was something that they had different cuts of the movie, and then when there was audio issues, they put out the newer cut and it was changes, and then that's just been
Yeah.
the de facto cut after that. Um, but yeah, so there's some slight changes there.
So let's go to some reviews. Uh, Metacritic, an 86 critic score, an 85 an audience score. Um, Rotten Tomatoes, 95 on the tomato meter, 94 on the popcorn meter. IMDb, it is the number 44 rated movie currently on IMDb at an 8.5, which I did not realize this had rated that high. Also, I
Yeah.
did not realize, like, I thought there'd be more, like, higher rated than that. But, yeah, number 44 rated movie on IMDb. So now I know usually when we do this, and I'm talking about the movie, you would go last with your review of what your score. But I'm gonna have you go first,
Sure.
since you had already seen this movie before.
This is a 4.5 out of 5. So there are some things that knock it down for me a bit the from the first one. So I was really looking forward to this movie. I think part of it that kind of knocked it down for me was just the hype alone, where people are saying this is like better than the first. I went in thinking like, oh my god, it's gonna be a masterpiece, and then people saying like that it's the best. I saw people say it is the best comic book movie of all time, and I was like, all right, we're getting a little wild here as we're going into it. And for me, it didn't live up to that because so the first 20 minutes is just Gwen's background. Then you get back to Miles, and almost like the story has to reset and build again. And I'm wondering if maybe that Gwen thing was supposed to be like a standalone, like short film at some point or something, because it just seems really like, uh, kind of like it has its own story, like its own arc in that short 20-minute span. And then you go into the rest of the credits where it's like Columbia Pictures presents, and you're like, oh my God, we are already 20 minutes into this movie. And then you have to start with Miles and then build up to there where we get to the actual Spider-Verse part when he leaves to go to Mumbatan. It's like halfway through the movie. Um, then you have the ending, which I was actually kind of more lenient on the first time because I was like, well, it's only 8 months away and we'll see how it plays out. Like, this, we're going to approach 4 years between the movies when this comes out. And I, when I was in the theaters, I'm like, man, we are running out of time. There's no way they end it with him trapped in 42 or at least tied up. Maybe he gets out or something, but like it didn't feel like an actual ending to the movie. Um, but that's where like the Gwen story kind of comes into it, and like she has a full arc in this movie that maybe it's more of a Gwen centric movie, I guess, in that case. But to me, it seems like it was kind of conflicting on what on that, like who the main lead is and that because it's like continuing Miles' story, but also you have Gwen who kind of comes into her growth throughout the movie. That ending scene where she's putting together her own spider society feels like an ending, but then you have Miles tied up with his finger just about to give out some electricity, and that didn't feel like a satisfying ending for me in that regard. So I bumped it down half a star because the animation is still incredible, the performances are still great, the story itself is still good, and it's just one of those things where I knew it ended on a cliffhanger because it's part one, but there was a lot of people when that because they changed the name from part one to part two, right? To just being called Across the Spider-Verse, there were people that went in this movie that had no clue this was going to end on a cliffhanger, and you could hear the sigh when it said to be continued on the screen, and people being like, "Oh no!" Uh, but yeah, so I have 4.5 stars. Oh, you're on mute, Casey. Hold on, you're on mute. There you go.
So I definitely agree with the aspect that the credits came in not kind of late, but it was one of those where, yeah, like you said, they went through the whole Gwen Stacy thing, and then the credits came, and I was like, wow, like I thought they put the credits up earlier, but they didn't. And like you said, it was further in the movie than I anticipated. Um, I did not see this ending on a spoiler, or I'm sorry, not on a spoiler, on a cliffhanger. Um, I hadn't looked up anything about the movie until I started watching it today. I didn't want to spoil it for myself before. Plus, like we talked about before, I kept thinking at some point you were going to pick it during the entire season, so I didn't want to. I didn't want to watch it, and I didn't want to look anything up on it. I wanted to go into it as clean as possible. Um, it is a great movie. Once again, the animation is great. Um, I don't know if they had one, but I can see that they might need some warnings about the bright flashing lights, especially in the beginning. Um, those threw me off a little bit, and I can imagine that if there were some people who have that sensitivity where they might have seizures, like that might be an issue for them. Pretty sure that might have been a warning. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. But I like those kind of threw me for a little loop for a second. I was like, oh, this is a little something here. Getting old. Um, I'm. It's not as good as the first one. I still think the first one is better than this one. They're both great animated features. They're both good stories. This took so many turns that I didn't see coming. As far as him being the original incursion, him being the reason it all was supposed to happen. If he didn't get like him getting bit caused a Spider-Man to to not be in another universe. Um, I still don't trust what's his name. Uh,
Miguel.
yeah, I don't trust Miguel. I like the fact that they brought J.K. Simmons back for all the J. Jonah Jamesons again.
Yes.
All the J. Jonah Jamesons, and no matter what universe J. Jonah Jameson has that voice, it's awesome. Um, so I can't give it a 5. I can definitely see a 4.5 out of 5. It's definitely something I will watch again, for sure. Um,
And it might get stronger when you have the other half, right? Like that's the thing is like it really feels like I know there's been cliffhangers in movies before and people are kind of equating this to Empire Strikes Back, but I really feel like Empire Strikes Back had more of a ending. Because people are trying to say like, oh, well, Han Solo gets captured like Miles does here, but I'm like, yeah, but he's like taken away and like he's
yeah,
gone, and we just think he's gone. Like this, we are clearly left on like Prowler versus Miles is got to be like the first thing that happens in this movie, right? Like,
in theory, like because we've all seen the whole thing about Harrison Ford wasn't sure if he was going to come back for Han Solo.
right, right,
So like yeah, like if he wouldn't have came back, or if they would have, that was it would have sucked, but that was an ending for Han Solo right there. Like that was it. He was captured, he was caught, and he's encased in carbonite. Like you're done.
right.
Um, I didn't know that about this one, that this was supposed to be cross part one and part two. I didn't
Yeah,
know that it was meant to be a two-part story, and then that was supposed to come out a year later, and now it's 4 years later,
yeah.
and we're
They
still
still
waiting
haven't
for it.
recorded their lines. If you listen to what Haley Steinfeld just said, so she still has not voiced for Beyond.
Well, now is that because maybe they can't? Everyone is Oscar Isaac's been pretty busy. Haley
No, because
Steinfeld's been fairly busy.
voice work doesn't usually take that long for them, like in the sense of they can do it anywhere now, and they can, like, even if they're not doing it at home, if Haley's in New York, they can be like, go to the New York, they buy like a studio for a day, like go to this studio and record your lines, and then it gets fed back to them, and they're, like, they can pretty much do it anywhere. I don't think it has anything to do with that. It really is, seems like it is an
Are they
issue of
still
not
writing the
wanting.
story or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, still writing and coming up with what they're doing to wrap this all up. I mean, like, they made so many late changes in this one, um and there was reports that the animators were in a crunch and had really poor working conditions because the writers kept making last minute changes and needed to get this thing out. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're going through the same sort of thing here. Um,
And
yeah.
especially when you're finishing 10 days before the world premiere.
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, I can imagine how, like, that's got the rendering on all the stuff like that, too. Like, that takes a while. Like, that's not an easy task. We talked about, I think we talked about the stuff for, not Inception, for Interstellar. Some of the rendering for some of that stuff took forever.
Yeah.
Um, Now, granted, they're using probably like top of the line CGI graphics for because they're making realistic black holes, so it's a little bit different when they're feeding signs into it stuff as well. But still, that's
Yeah.
um
So we'll see on how that works. I do want to share something before we go to. So you didn't know it was Earth 42 until they did the reveal, right?
no, not at all. I legitimately thought he was home and he was talking to his mom, and then when everything happened, I was like, oh, he's not in the right place. Like, oh, this is not good.
So this pops up about an hour and 46 minutes into the movie. This is when Miles is getting scanned to go home. This pops up, and I saw this in theaters. So for the listeners, it says
Okay.
confirmed, destination locked, Earth 42.
I,
So
I was gonna ask, did you catch that when you actually saw it?
I
Because
did.
a lot of that stuff, it was the graphics were
Quick. It's
coming
quick.
on, and yeah, a lot of that stuff was coming real quick and fast. And it was just
So
like,
at
and
this
they're
point,
cutting back and forth between him and the girl at the computer and
yeah,
this and
yeah.
that. So
So at this point, I'm like, oh no, he's going to the wrong universe. And then we get the gasp from the rest of the audience when they reveal it. But like there was times then where I was kind of like they still did it well because I was still doubting. Like I saw this and I'm like, yeah, that's the wrong Earth because the spiders from Earth 42, exactly. But then when they're like cutting it certain ways, I'm like, was that an error? Did they put that slide in there as an error? Is he supposed to be at home? And then like the reveal happens. I'm like, no, okay, great. Like at first I started thinking it was an error when you have like that chase sequence of like Gwen trying to catch up with him and like all this stuff, and you're like, well, the unit like it looked so similar with the rain and everything. I was like, maybe that was
yeah,
just an error and it was like not supposed to be in this cut or something, and they didn't catch it. But no, they were too good for that. They knew what they were doing. But pretty cool that pops up like that. I just went and found the screenshot of it, and that's that's one of those things where it's set up so well in the movie, and then even when you see it like this, I was kind of doubting, like, is that real? Is that an error? Like, did I see that right? Like,
I
um,
can definitely see myself going to see the next one when it comes out in theater.
I also want to point out Earth 1610, where Miles comes from, is the Ultimate Universe in the comics. So that is where Miles made his appearance for the first time, was in the Ultimate Universe. So that is his home universe. They've now since folded him into the 616, which is the comic standard universe, the main continuity. And
Okay, and that's the one that the MCU is based off of, right?
yeah, so actually, too, like originally the MCU was given the designation like Earth 199999, which is what Miguel mentions about Doctor Strange and that little punk from Earth
Yeah.
199. He's referring to the events from No Way Home there. Because that's the original designation for the MCU. They've changed that since to the MCU being 616 for the live action stuff, but like the comics is also 616, but not the same continuity as the MCU. So um, it gets confusing in that regard. But
Okay. Yeah, because I remember. Ooh, he made the comment about Doctor Strange, and I was like, okay, so they're referencing the Earth, the Earth that we know of, but I was like, where does that fit in with the whole? Where does that fit in with everybody there? But I guess maybe it does fit in because, like you said, the whole Venom is in 616, correct?
No, he is like the Venom movies are not. No, they are in a different universe.
But didn't he have a touch with Spider Man or something? Or like,
They in the so that's where it gets kind of they were trying Sony was trying to kind of fit Venom in there to have the crossover event. So at the end of No Way Home, he gets pulled like it's revealed he was in that universe due to at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage, he gets pulled into the MCU due to the Doctor Strange spell. It was a post-credit scene. And then when they send everybody home, he goes back home into his universe.
because I was gonna say, because didn't also didn't wasn't the Vulture in one of them or something too?
Yeah, that was Sony just trying to fit it into the MCU, but it is not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sony being a pain in the ass, pretty much. Yeah, because they had in Morbius, is what you're referring to for the listeners. In Morbius, they have the Vulture, Michael Keaton
in
appear,
prison or something. Yeah,
and he appears and he's like, let's go get Spider-Man or something, and it doesn't take place in the same continuity. So who knows? That's never going to be followed up on. Morbius was a failure. Sony's kind of out on all of those movies at this point. I don't think they're following up on any of those. So just ignore it. All right. Well, stats before we go. Um, this is another movie that is part of a franchise. Is one of the Marvel franchises, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So we add another one to that. Uh, for the actors, we have a couple a couple more actually. So Yorma Tacone from The Lonely Island is now at 3 films because he was in Into the Spider-Verse, he was in Weird, the Al Yankovic story, and he is also in Across the Spider-Verse. He played Vulture. So Yorma is at 3. We have at 2 currently, Haley Steinfeld, Shamik Moore, Jake Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry, Lauren
Marshall
Velez.
Ali.
Yeah, those are all at 2 films. And then for like first names, last names, I forgot to add Gwen. So we do have another G. I added her now. So we have 3 G's. And we have Miles was already in the M's, but currently we do have a lot of M's. It might be one of our most frequent of the names. We're at like 7 M's or something now. Okay. So I guess what is next? What is next? Well, we're gonna
This
wrap
is
up
the
the
finale to the
season.
season, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going just like I ended the season last time with Weird Al and a comedy. I'm ending with a comedy as well, but we're going TV. I haven't pulled the TV card a lot. And I hinted it during our LA Confidential episode the other week that there's a actor in those who is in a TV show that I'm picking next, and it is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So that is where we're going. Danny DeVito. But we are going to be watching 3 episodes that I've picked. I've decided to keep the pilot. A lot of people don't like season 1, okay? But I actually think season 1 is very underrated. And season 1 is pre Danny DeVito as well. So we're starting with the pilot, which is called The Gang Gets Racist. Okay, it's season 1, episode 1.
That's a hell of a title.
Season 2, episode 1, Charlie Gets Crippled will be the next one that we watch. And then season 2, episode 3, Dennis and Dee Go on Welfare will be the 3rd episode that we watch. I just saw like I was watching YouTube reactions of this series recently, and those 3 episodes are uh since I wanted to do the pilot to kind of introduce you to everybody and what it was like pre Danny DeVito, I picked that one. Season 1 is only like 6 to 7 episodes anyway, so there's not many without DeVito. And then season 2, Danny DeVito comes in, so I picked the first episode of that, so you get introduced to Danny DeVito's character, and it's also a very funny episode. And then I think one of the best episodes is the Dennis and Dee go on welfare. So that's a pretty good one. There are way other episodes that are my favorites that I didn't want to pick without really setting the table on this. So
And that's getting ready to come back for like its 20th season or something here in the summer, right?
I think season 18 or 19 now. Yeah, they are
Because
close.
I think their first one it's getting close because I think their first one is their version of the crossover with Abbott Elementary.
Yeah, so I think let's see, season 17 is premiering this July, and then we have I think it was already renewed for 18. So yeah. And we'll see if it gets renewed past that, I guess. But I'm hoping it gets to 20. Even though it's not as good as it used to be, I'm hoping it gets to 20. All right. Well, that wraps us up here. You can watch those on Hulu for people that are following along. Hulu is where It's Always Sunny in His House. But thank you all for watching and listening along. Let us know your thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse in the comments below or via our social medias, which are in the link below. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time when we talk It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.